You're the best. Thank you so much, Frank, dude. One of the people that I gotta say I've learned the most from in the short time that I was learning from you out in SAE, man. Like,
Thanks, man.
dude, it just takes short time being around you to learn
Thank you.
mentality. To me, the main thing I got from you was mentality on how to approach problem solving.
Are you trying to make me cry? Is that
I
what
think
that
so.
we're doing?
I'm
That
trying-
is this going to be a very dramatic episode of?
No, not that
No, I
dramatic,
appreciate
man.
that,
It's
bro. I
just
appreciate that.
it's just being real because there's not a lot of people that inspire that confidence.
Thanks, man.
And also the knowledge that you have from your experience, because it's not just something that's technical. It's very less about the technical aspects, more about how you approach a problem, how you approach, which we come up with those in life,
Sure.
in engineering, in music, and everything that we really do.
Yeah. I appreciate that. That's really nice. I think and I hear that often, like people say stuff like that to me. And I think the main thing that I attribute that to is the fact that I've never felt that I was that technically proficient at anything. So I always felt like I was kind of behind the eight ball, and I always had to find creative ways to solve things. And I think that's just naturally how my brain would work. So it was a little bit of, I guess, my imposter syndrome, like feeling like I don't know how to do
That
this.
shit eats people alive, huh?
100%.
The imposter
So it
syndrome.
would be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing in this room, but this is how I'm going to figure it out. And I kind of always just kind of like just figured stuff out.
But I think those are also the things that allow other people to see you and be like, I want to work with him. Because no matter what happens, he's going to solve it.
Right. I mean, I think, when you go to any type of technical, creative, any type of place where there's like a technical part of a creative endeavor, right? So like engineering is that like technical part of a creative endeavor. The people who teach you normally would be like, the main thing is that you don't stop the creative part. Like you can't be in the way. You can't be the thing that slows it down. So you always have to kind of like are looking for solutions. And whenever I was, teaching audio and even now, like when I still like train people, I'm always like, you're the problem solver in the room. Like you have to be the problem solver. So like that whole thing is like just something I carry and even to a point now where like I find myself whenever I'm in any situation, I'm like, how can I make this better?
How can I make this situation better?
Yeah, and just in general, like like right now, like actually, like should I put my hands here? Like I'm always thinking about like how can I make this better for everybody who's participating, and I try to like show people that because it's like there's always a better.
I think there's also a portion of that where it's being conscious, and common sense is not always common, but it's also being conscious of, there's a camera, like I'm not gonna put my hand on top of my face,
Like I did the interview like this.
Yeah. Or I've had people come in full on masks. I'm just like, bro, like come on.
Yeah, like it's so yeah, that's I that also just goes back to just being like empathetic to other people, their feelings and their needs and stuff like that. Just kind of like making people feel comfortable. In any creative space, if you're there in the room and that person's trying to be creative, like first of all, being creative, anybody who's creative, it's hard.
It's tough as is.
It's tough. Like you're embarrassed sometimes. You're like, oh, like anybody who's ever done this, for the most part, when you start out, like you're kind of like, oh, I want to show you this thing, but I'm not really sure if this is like you always feel that way. So then have somebody there who's not respecting that or just kind of making it difficult just makes it harder.
It does.
So just being there and just being like, hey, it's okay. Like I got this. Like you don't have to worry about any of this other stuff. Like just be your creative self.
See, bro, that's another thing you do, bro. That's another thing you do. It's not a big deal, bro. It's just like, it's fine. Just ask them what they need and that's it. And it really isn't a big deal.
It's not.
But people get in their heads. And I think that's that portion where it's the creative meets the technical, what you just said, that people just lock out. A lot of creatives have problems, for example, with numbers, with Excel, with like their finances and things like that, because they're more focused on feeling what they want to express and actually expressing it,
Yeah.
So what do you think has been one of the key things that working with creators has helped you overcome that?
As far as them being their limits, creators have limits, of course,
so complimenting them on that.
I mean, for me, like, for my examples are a lot of times they're just kind of like sitting in the room with either like a writer or like a singer and like them trying to like get their art out and like knowing when to push and when to back off. Like, hey, let's do it again. I know there's a better one. Like, let's try one more. Like, let's do it one more time. And then when you see that there's a point where it's like the one more times are not working anymore, then knowing like, all right, you know what? Let's take a break. You know, and you can see like the relief, like, thank God, like I was, you know, because sometimes also like you'll have a creative in your space and you're asking them to do something and they're not getting it. And then they start to like eat themselves up. Like, oh, why am I not getting this? I'm suck. I did it. And when you start seeing that, like that stops being productive. So you got to be like, hey, let's take a break. You know, whenever I would feel that, like somebody's in the booth or whatever, and they're you know, cutting a vocal and it's just like, you know, people get stuck on a word sometimes.
Yeah.
Like they'll sing it 100 times, it'll be perfect. And then just that one time, it's just like one word, it just doesn't come out. And just be like, hey, you know what? I need to do something. Can you take like 10? And I don't tell them, hey, I'm stopping because you can't get this. I'm telling them like, hey, I need to do something. So can you go somewhere else? Because I don't want you to see me because I'm doing this dumb crap.
That is so important, bro.
And then they'll like walk out and they'll feel like, oh, thank God that he had to do this other thing because I wasn't getting it. And then like letting them go away. And then they come back and usually, you know, they come back, they have a cup of water, cup of tea, whatever. And they feel better. And you'll be like, hey, like, do you want to try that one more time? Or let's move on to another part and we'll come back to that one. And just that relief and getting them comfortable again and feeling confident. And then you come back to it. And then usually they just nail it. But you got it sometimes to give people that space.
And notice that you're giving the example of music, but in reality, me pasa mucho here with people recording like reels or whatever.
Yeah.
Bro, people, like, they beat themselves up over like one line. Like they just started, they mess up that one line, and then it's just like, damn it. And they stand up, they get water. Yeah. You just broke your concentration.
100%.
And sometimes you do need that break, but sometimes you just need to say, I messed up, it's okay, it's normal, and let's do it again.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like when we were at the studio, we would do like all the content stuff. And there are sometimes like you mess up on something that you're saying, and then you start over analyzing it. And then you keep messing up in the same spot and you keep making the same, and you're like, what is wrong with me? And sometimes it's like, all right, you know what, we're not doing this right now. Mm-hmm. We're going to do something else and whatever. Like I remember at one point over the guy who used to do all our content I was like, bro, we need to do like a bloopers reel. And it was like so long of like me going, and it was like super funny, but it was just like, and it would be like something so dumb. Like you'd say Wednesday wrong. Like I just thought about it right now and I almost messed up Wednesday. Cause you're just like, your brain goes, and you go into this loop and it's just like, it's super not productive.
But also it's normal.
100%.
There's one thing that to me has worked the most, which is do a run through. And in music too, like just do a run through from beginning to end, get through it. You know where you're going to have issues and you kind of identify it already.
I do that a lot of times. And anybody who's in music now or records knows, like a lot of people, they like to like do 2 bars and then 2 bars and then 2 bars and then 2 bars and then 2 bars. And they record that way. But a lot of times people come in to record with me and I'll be like, let's just sing it all the way through one time. And I'm like, oh, for what? I'm like, it's just to get warm up. And I always say like, oh, I'm just getting levels and I want to make sure that everything's right. But I'm just giving them a chance to just kind of go through it. I'm like, it's okay if you mess up. It doesn't matter. We're not keeping any of this. But it usually gives them a chance to go through it. And sometimes I'll do it like 2 or 3. I'm like, let's do it again. Just so you feel comfortable. And usually like the 3rd time is actually really good. And I'll be like, we could probably keep most of this. And they're like, oh. And then you're like, oh, let's just grab the parts where it's like. But a lot of times you can actually do it if you are not thinking about it. Because when I take away the pressure of, I'm probably not going to keep this, just do it, then there's like a freedom there to like express yourself and do whatever. And it's usually good. And then we can just go back and like fine tune it. But it's like, you know, we get in our heads so much sometimes. It's like.
The other cool thing that I like is recording the whole thing and then going back to the beginning and recording the beginning again.
That
just gets you like a nice fresh take.
Yeah, bro. No, and you always feel better. And that works with anything. Like, you know, sometimes like we're going somewhere, like, you know, I'm coming here today and I'm like thinking about like, what am I going to say? But I really didn't know what we were going to talk about. But I was already in my head about like, what am I going to say? Like, you know, it's like everybody does that. All creatives do that. We get in our heads of like, oh, what am I going to say? I want to make it sound cool. What if he asked me this? And just like, you're creating all these barriers that don't even exist just because you don't want to like, it's so stupid.
Absolutely. It's
so
what did you think we were going to talk about today?
I had no idea. And I thought we were going to talk in Spanish, which I was
like
yeah, I was like ready. I was like, buenas tardes. I was about to put on my Univision voice. I honestly didn't know, and which I think that helped me like not think about it too much. Because I've done like stuff before, and it's always like super audio based. But when you were like, oh, it's creative and it doesn't necessarily just mean music, I was like, oh, this is good because this is like more general, which is kind of like where I'm at more now.
This is where you belong. This is where you belong, man. Because I think also the practice of speaking to so many creatives throughout the years helps you connect with whether it's a graphic designer, video editor, a team in general. And I think that's what expertise gives you. Like you're able to handle the team underneath you, which you had the opportunity to do it recently when you were at Rich, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like just understanding like creative mentality and like the blocks and how like you can push some people but you can't push certain people, and kind of really understanding like what people's roles are or what they're really good at doing, and identifying that early, and also like just asking people like, bro, do you want to do this? Because it's like, and I always give people the out, like it's okay if you don't. Like I love telling people that, like, yo, do you want to do this? And I'm like, and it's okay if you don't want to do it. Like I'm not gonna be upset. Like we'll just figure something else out.
Yeah, nobody's trying to force you to do anything.
No,
Absolutely.
not at all. And that really helps, like when you're dealing with people, like, hey, I understand like we all need to make money, but let's figure out a way where this is also giving you something besides just a paycheck. Like where it's like fulfilling some part of your, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes I know there's a few people in my WhatsApps that I'm like, bro, you should do this. This would be really cool if you do this. And they're just like, oh, I don't know, Frank. And I'm just like, okay, well, when you're ready. Like, I think this would be really, I think you'd be really good at this because you have, you know, and sometimes we don't see it.
It's actually very tough for creators to see it on their own. They're inside of it. Like, it's like those people that are in toxic relationships.
100%. You don't know until like you're outside of it and you're like, what? You guys did what? And you're just like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, 100%. Like you don't, sometimes you're in it, or sometimes you are so hyper focused on this one thing that you want to do that you miss like little opportunities to just kind of like, I think one of my, the biggest thing, especially for creators that I try to kind of push is that like a lot of us will go and have some sort of technical expertise in something that could potentially be a business where you make money and you don't have to go to an office every day. Mm-hmm. And then be like, hey, you could do that. And it's going to be tough in the beginning, but eventually you'll make enough money that you could just probably work 4 hours every day and then go do all your creative stuff that you want to do. But it's hard to take that leap. Absolutely. And I just try to like point it out to people. I'm like, hey, you're really good at this. Like you could probably just do that and just make. And I only know this because I do it all the time. Right? So? Like just, I've had a million jobs and I've done all kinds of, when I was at SAE, I had like 3 jobs. I did like at one point I was doing their social media. I've never done social media in my life, but I was like, oh, I'm pretty good at taking pictures and I'm kind of funny. And so I can make these comments and it's entertaining. And it was great. And I'd never done it before, but I was like, oh, and they were paying me extra money. And
their social media also grew in that time.
And it grew, yeah. And I was getting paid for it. Like an amount that I was like, that's crazy that you're paying somebody that much to do that. And so like, I've always done stuff like that. Like I've done that. I've consulted people on building studios. I don't have an acoustic guy. I don't.
But you know what you're doing there.
But I understand.
I mean, that's one field that you totally manage.
But I understood it, and I would have never thought that I could charge people for it, and then I can, and I do, and then it's great. You know what I'm saying? And so it just like, and now like leading to the other things that I'm working on, just being in the field, like I'm now helping like creative people like figure out like their situations as far as like how to make money and like publishing and all that stuff. I didn't go to school for any of that stuff. I just learned it, and now I'm like, oh, this is something that I can do that allows me to. Now for me, it's not so much like, oh, I can go and be creative somewhere. Now it's like, oh, I can do this, and then I can spend all afternoon playing baseball with my son.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Or we went to not yesterday, Tuesday. Like it was like 11 a.m. and I was like, let's go to the pool. We were at the pool all afternoon, and like
it gives you freedom.
100%. So it's just like, yeah, find those little things that, and maybe you don't want to be whatever thing it is that you're making money, but it also, that's giving you freedom to do the things that you actually really want to do, as opposed to going to work every day and having this weird job that you know.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Absolutely.
There's people that need to have that stability, and sometimes that's the transitional point.
100%. And sometimes you need that that 9 to 5 steady thing when you've been in the creative field for, like when I went to work at SAE, I needed that. Not because I needed the money, I just needed stability. Like I had been traveling and doing all this stuff. And I always tell people, like, when I went to work there, like I didn't want to do this anymore. Like I was like over it.
Really? Why?
I was burnt out. Like I had been. So when I went to this SAE, it was 2000. What year did you go?
2010. I went 2012, 2013.
So I got there like 2010. Like at the end or started. I officially started 2011 January of 20. But in 2010, I had like was teaching a few classes. But I took the full-time job in 2011, and think about like from 1999, from when I graduated Full Sail, I had done nothing but just hyper focus on doing this.
On engineering.
Being engineering, working in studios. And I got to like a really high level. But it cost me a lot of other stuff. And I was like, at that point when I I quit at the Grammys.
What do you mean?
Like I was at the Grammys and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And
was that for the Amy era?
Yeah, I think it was those Grammys. I don't know if it was those Grammys. And people sometimes asking me like, is it because you lost? And I'm like, no, it had nothing to do with it. It was because like, I was like there and I was like, this is all great, but I just would rather be in my house. Like I want to go home. And I hadn't been home for like weeks. And I was kind of like over it. And I feel like I had like my own personal time. Like I was just taking gig after gig after gig. And
because it was kind of a chain reaction for you. Like, what was the timeline? I think you got your internship, then you started working. At Circle House, was it?
No, so I got an internship, my one and only internship. I worked for a guy who then became a teacher at SAU. Charles, did you ever know Charles?
Yeah, he was director when I was there.
Charles. So Charles Dye, really successful engineer.
He did a Live in La Vida Loca.
He was the one that mixed Live in La Vida Loca, and he worked with Desmond Child, who's a massive songwriter.
Was that the first album they worked on Pro Tools?
It was the first song completely done in Pro Tools ever. So the company that owns Pro Tools at that time was called Digit Design. Now it's Avid. He was like their poster child. Like he was in ads and stuff, like all this stuff. So he was really like doing well, and then he opened his own studio, and I got a job there. And so I got like brought into like this whole Pro Tools world. At that time, like believe it or not, Pro Tools people were still like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. Like people were like, I don't know if it's gonna last, which is really funny now.
That's what they think of AI nowadays.
100%. If it's not going anywhere, guys. Sorry. People are gonna figure out how to make it work for them, and then it's just gonna be a normal thing. So I worked there. I was Charles's intern for about a year, and I became like the assistant in the studio, and then eventually I kind of became like the studio manager. He kind of let me like kind of run it. He was really adamant that I learn Pro Tools like really well. So Charles's Pro Tools at that time was extremely advanced compared to most regular Pro Tools users. So I got to sit there and like learn like Pro Tools like at a level that most people couldn't. Which then when I would go work at other studios was like, people were like, what is going on? Like, how are you doing that? Like, I remember somebody asked me like, how old are you? And then how long have you been using Pro Tools? And I'd be like, oh, I've been using it for a year. And they're like, how do you know to do this like this? And it was because of Charles. So I owe him everything. Because of that, I started getting work at other studios, and people would just be like blown away because of one of the things that when Pro Tools came and digital recording in general came on, people are like, oh, it's going to save us so much more time. So for anybody who has never recorded or is recording, when you record to tape, you have to like stop and hit rewind and wait for the machine to rewind all the way back. Mm-hmm. And then you'd have to find the spot again because you can't see it. You have to listen like, oh, no, go back a little bit more. Oh, go back. So you're like...
And depending where you pause is where you're going to start again. So.
Right. So then you're like there and they're like, okay, well, no, we need to go back. So then you'd have to play a little bit further back so then you can record and make sure. And then the other thing is like, if you messed up, you can't undo it. Mm-hmm. So you had to make sure. So you would do like practice takes. Like, hey, we're going to try to punch this in. And you try it. Okay, that was cool. Okay, let's actually do it this time. So it was just a lot of time. So, sessions for vocals would take 8 hours. Or recording sessions were 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. Where now you could record a vocal in an hour, So because of that, and because of my ability, I was saving people time. So people come to the studio and they'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna cut this song."
I remember that's one of the main things that you taught us.
Yeah, I'd be like, "Yo, look, we're in and we're out. We're in and we're out. We're cutting lots of records, and that got me a lot of work. People would just ask for me and stuff, and I got to work on a lot of really cool projects, being super young and not being that great at being an engineer. I was good at Pro Tools, but I wasn't a great engineer. I sucked. But I could do Pro Tools really fast, and that saved a lot of time. So the stuff that I was not that great at, I got to practice because I was great at Pro Tools. Of course. So Pro Tools allowed me the time to be like, okay, I can take a little bit extra time trying to set up the mic and getting a sound because I know the rest of it is going to go super fast. So it just afforded me that extra bit of like leeway, and then gave me a lot of confidence to be in the room and to do stuff.
Which is also extremely important, man. Getting the confidence to like know that you belong in that room.
100%.
Don't feel like an outsider or like an imposter.
And a lot of that came just from people going, yo, this guy's so fast. And you're just like, you feel great. You're just like, I'm supposed to be here. And that means a lot.
It does.
Because if people are there and they're like, oh, what are you doing? Like I've seen engineers now, like when I was over managing at Moreplay, like guys who are been doing this for some time and see them get frazzled when the artist is like, I don't know if this is, and it's like, bro, you're here for a reason. Like, but it's hard to hear that, so all those things, led to me just being super confident about my ability. And
that was the era with Charles.
That was right after Charles. That's me going to Circle House. That's me doing a lot of like stuff like Bad Boy early in the early 2000s.
That was one of my I lived the fuck out of that album, bro. The shiny suit, man. Come on.
So I got a lot of experience there, and then also like that was at a super high level.
Yeah.
So like 2 years after coming out of school, like you're working at these like big projects, and it's like super high level, and you're seeing like people that you see on TV, and it's
how
like,
big was the company back then?
It was pretty large, and then that camp probably had like maybe 20 something writers and producers all at the same time, like down there. So all the rooms are going at the same time. Nice. So it was like really busy. It was like buzzing. It was at Circle House. It was like really busy and a lot of people, and you're seeing like these like really successful producers and really successful songwriters that you've only heard about, and now you're like
putting the face to the name.
Yeah, and you're like they're like talking to you, and now like they need you to do something, and you feel like the importance. So it was just like a really cool experience early on. And then my confidence was like through the roof after that part. Like I've never been like a cocky person, but I definitely felt like
you got this.
Like, yeah, I know, like I'm at a really good place and like I know what I'm doing. And then even like getting to travel, like being asked to travel with them and go to LA and like keep working with them and seeing people like who are successful be like, oh no, I want Frank in my room recording me. Like that meant a lot for me. And it felt really great. Then the money was great too.
I bet. Did you save up? Did you do a 401k?
Unfortunately not. And my first tax bill, I'll never forget, my accountant told me how much I owed. And I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, you made a lot of money. Like you gotta, it was like this ridiculous tax bill. And I was just like.
But that's another thing we don't realize in this industry, that you have to pay taxes on that. And like, when artists are touring, they have to pay taxes on wherever they made money too. Yeah. Depending on their structure, because a lot of companies take care of that. But if you're independent and you're playing in these cities, you better pay the tax for that state. 100%. City.
Yeah, no, it was nuts. And just even like different things like I remember I was doing some film stuff in LA, and I was on a big film for a while, and we were working on it. And one time the people from the union was like, hey, are you union? And I was like, no. And then they were like, hey, you need to join the union or we will shut this down. Like the whole movie.
Was that Sex and the City?
That was for, I want to say it was for Rush Hour.
Okay.
When we were doing Rush Hour.
But you did what soundtrack for?
So for Rush Hour, I was working with Salaam, and Salaam got hired to do a lot of like music that would be in the film.
Okay.
So there would be like a lot of songs that, they just like, oh, we need like this kind of music here. And since it was like Rush Hour, they needed like a, hip hop type stuff, a lot of stuff. But we ended up doing a bunch of like different stuff. And then because of that, then they did like we had like one song on the score. And then for Sex and the City, it was the same thing. It was like, hey, we need like this kind of song. And it was almost like music supervision / production kind of thing. It was really cool. They call it like making scores, which is like, it's source music. Mm-hmm. It sounds like source music, but it's actually made for the film. So it was like electronic production stuff for the film. So there's a lot
in that case, what the producer watches the piece and then kind of makes something around it on the spot and then starts building it.
Yeah, but and like sometimes it would be like, hey, there's a temp song in there and we really like it. Can you make something that's like kind of like this? Okay. And then because a lot of times you don't hear the song clearly, like for one scene in Rush Hour, we had to do a song and it was coming out of the car. So you just like heard the bass line. So we had to like make this beat that felt like a hip hop thing, but you were only gonna hear like, but it had to work, and we had to like present it like I had to like filter everything, and then the car would open, and then you kind of make it hear some of it, and then
so it's like sound design in a way, but mixing it with the actual song.
And then in some instances, like they would actually become songs for certain. Like on the Sex and the City with like Jennifer Hudson, like there were stuff that was like there were songs,
actual full-on songs that you had to just build for it, because they ended up being part of the of the score.
Yeah,
I did it was for ABC. We did a TV show, and my song came out, and it was actually one that I worked with Frank El Medico.
Nice.
He mixed it, yeah. And bro, it was like I was so excited when I actually got to watch it. It was 12 seconds, bro. I'm not joking. I was like, that's it. And it's like the girls are in a club, the song plays, and they get into the bathroom. It's just filtered the whole time.
It. Yeah.
And I'm counting that in the 12 seconds.
Yeah,
film is crazy, huh?
No, it's awesome. It's really cool. The only thing is like when you're doing like film, like obviously the visual is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So like I remember like sometimes we'd send a piece of music and then it'd come back and it would be edited and it'd be like, that doesn't make any musical sense the way it's been edited. Like the chords don't resolve. Yeah. It's just like weird. I'm like, that doesn't make. So we would have to like, kind of like, okay, I get what you're trying to do. Look, like, let's figure out how we can massage it and kind of like edit it and stuff like that. So it's a great experience, and it's just really cool. Like I got to do a lot of like super cool stuff with the film stuff. So and travel, like, which is amazing.
Which is what kind of overwhelmed you at the end of the day. Like you were going through all of this, and you went into the whole, the movie part, the Bad Boy album. Was that then? What followed that era for you?
So after like the Bad Boy stuff. I kind of just bounced around locally, just doing sessions. Like I was just like a session engineer, which was great. And it was pretty steady. And then I met Salaam Remi, at a time where it was kind of like dead. It had kind of like really slow. And I had already been engineering, but I remember I called up the guys at Circle House and I was like, hey, like, will you guys just let me come back and just be an assistant, like from time? And they were like, why do you want to be an assistant for? I'm like, I just want to be in the studio. I'm like, and it's better than sitting home waiting for somebody to call me for a session. So they let me be an assistant. So in my first session was with Salaam and Gary Noble, R.I.P. Gary. And they came and they were there a week. They were working on this project for this artist name is Dynamite. And then we were there a week. They were mixing, and it was like, Gary was like super cool. He was like super, like gracious. Like he like I learned something that week with Gary, and because Gary could have been a jerk, and he was like super nice to me, and I was like, he didn't have to be nice to me, but he went out of his way to be nice to me and show me stuff that I didn't know, and I was like, I took that with me. I was like, I'll always like, because you would have guys who were like, no offense to like the New York engineers of that time, but a lot of those guys would come down and they were like
super cocky.
Not just that, there's like coming from that school of like, oh, assistant interns, you guys clean toilets and like I'm gonna like punish you, and Gary was like the exact opposite. And he was like, I remember there was a mix that they had up on the SSL, and he had asked me to save it, and I think I walked out of the room and I did something else and I completely forgot. And then Salaam was like, hey, did we save that last one? And then I was like, oh shit. And I told him, I was like, bro, I didn't. And he was like, it's okay. He was like, no, I think we did something. He just made something up. He was like, no, he covered for me. And I was like, bro, I was like, he could have totally just been like, yo, this guy didn't, and he didn't. And I was like, bro, you're a real one for that. And then obviously we became friends, and we stayed friends for a really long time until his passing. But I met Salaam during that session and Gary, and then the next week, Salaam was going to come back, and he was coming back with Nas. And Nas had his own engineer, but he wasn't going to come. So he asked the BB from Socorro. He's like, yo, is there anybody who can record? And he's like, oh, Frank. And he's like, the assistant? And he's like, Frank's been recording for some time. He's just been here. And so then I spent the week with Nas, who was like my favorite rapper ever. And I was just like in shock.
How was that?
It was great. I didn't mess up.
You're more worried about you than about anything else. I was
super worried. I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. I'm going to fan out. And I didn't. I kind of kept my cool, and I recorded, and everything came out super good.
What songs were those?
I don't think it ended up ever going anywhere. Like those days.
Because this was like what 2000s, mid 2000s.
Yeah, this is like after like they had done like Godson and all that stuff. So I think they were just kind of like getting back into the group.
I remember the I know I can.
Exactly. This is like after that and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And so, yeah, like we were just there and like we were there all week with him, and it was like a great session. And I remember, like during the session, like towards the end, like Salaam was like, "Nas must like you," and I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because he hasn't kicked you out of the room yet." Because sometimes like they would talk, and he's like, he usually would tell people like, "Yo, can you excuse us?" And I saw him do it, like, "Yo, can you excuse us?" Like telling the assistants and stuff. But he's like, "Yo, but he just let you sit here in the room." He's like, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Getting the cosign from your favorite rapper, bro. That's awesome.
Clutch. But then after that, like, Salaam, he's like, "Yo, let me get your number, whatever." And then when he called me, he's like, "Hey, can you come to my studio, which was downtown? I'm recording Lauryn Hill." And I was like,
wow,
bro.
Fire. Salaam was the plug.
Yeah, super. So I was like, yes. So
you still working with him?
Yeah, I still talk to him from time to time. We haven't, like, I just helped him like put his studio together. He moved to Barbados.
Oh, nice.
So I helped him put his studio together down there. But I went down there and we waited for hours and she never showed up. And it was great. And I was just like, but we got to talk and Salaam played me Amy's first album. He's like, "Oh, I'm working on this thing." And I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." And then later on, tell me if the story's going on too long.
No, you're good. This is super interesting.
And then a few weeks had passed. I don't remember how much time had passed, but he texted me and he was like, "Hey, Miss Hill's looking for somebody to record her at her house. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah."
You were like, "Is she gonna show up?"
Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm down." And he's like, "All right, I'm gonna give her your number." And I'll never forget this. I was at Lincoln Road. There used to be, is that movie theater on Lincoln Road still there?
I don't know. Probably not.
There used to be a movie theater there, right at the end, right on Alton. And I was at the movies with my then girlfriend, and the phone rang. And I was in the movie theater. I was like, "Oh," I pick it up. I'm like, "Hello?" And he goes, "That's this woman." And she goes, "Is this Frank?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is Frank." He goes, "This is Miss Hill." And I was like, "Oh, hi." And she's like, "Salaam gave me your number. He said that you could help me record." And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Can you start now?" And I was like, "Yes." And I told my girl, I was like, "Hey, I gotta go." Like I walked out of the movie and she's like, "What?" And I was like, "Lauryn Hill just called me to come to her house." And she was like, "Oh, okay." Like she got it. Like we gotta wrap this up. So I left the movie and I drove down to her house.
Damn, what movie was it? Did you get to finish
I don't remember
I'm
what
so
movie
worried
it was.
about the movie now.
I have no idea what movie we were watching. It must have not been very good. And then I ended up working with Lauryn at her house for a year after that.
Wow.
From that, like I worked almost every day with her. And we worked on a bunch of stuff. And then
this was mostly produced by Salaam.
No, that stuff, no. That was like all the unplugged stuff that she was like re-recording and like working on the songs and like reworking them, and there would be like different musicians coming. I would speak to Salaam from time to time, but she was kind of like self-producing, and she would just have musicians come by, and it was this really cool house down in Pinecrest. And it was like we took over like half of the house. There was like a garage that was attached with like a bedroom, and it had like it was all like done up like a room, but you could tell like it was like a part of the house that was originally part of the house. And then eventually the garage, the actual garage, got turned into like another control room. Like Ross built these like panels. And, like,
dude, you lived through like literally the last era of the actual like for you to need an actual studio.
100%.
Like the last era of that, because you were like one of the first into Pro Tools.
100%. 100%.
That's awesome.
100%.
Because it's a tough transition. At that time was tough. There wasn't a lot of tools for it.
It is, and also like I lived through all like the growing pains of it.
The growing pains. Yeah.
Like all the like, oh, we're using these drives. Oh, now we use these drives, and then like, oh, you can't use this, and then oh, you can't do this operating system because this doesn't work.
iLocks
and like iLocks and like, and then at one point Macs weren't Power PCs, which was the original processor, and they went to Intel, and then it was like, oh, none of your stuff works over here. Now you got to buy all new stuff, and it was like a lot. It was a lot of like learning and like,
yeah.
But I did that for a year, and then that came to an end, and then Salaam called me like probably like maybe within a month of me not being with Lauryn anymore, and he was like, "Hey, I need some help on my studio," and then I went to work with him, and that worked for like 7 years.
What?
Yeah.
At his studio?
He had a studio in downtown, and then
This was mostly Miami.
yeah, most of these Miami. But with Salaam, then I started traveling, like going to London a lot, going to LA a lot. We got to go, like I went to Prague to record strings. I went to Morocco when they were doing the Sex and the City there to kind of like hear local music. It's super cool.
It's kind of like a research thing that you were doing?
I mean, we were there, they were filming, and we went to kind of see like what like Morocco sounded like. So
and what does Morocco sound like?
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Morocco's fantastic. Like it's one of the places, like it's weird, and I say this like it's weird, but like I landed in Morocco and I felt like I was like, I'm from here. Like it was weird. Like I got there and I was like, this feels super familiar to me. Like, but it was also weird because like all the stuff was in Arabic in the airport, and I'm like looking, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going about. So we're just gonna walk.
But
out.
there is something about it that feels like
felt very familiar. Yeah, I felt super familiar, and I had a really good time, and the people were amazing, and just the whole place is like it's super cool. We were in Marrakesh, but yeah, I got to record a bunch of like local musicians while we were there. We were there for like 10 days.
Those are always cool, man, to like see different sounds, different cultures, mesh all of that, into,
it was super
into
cool.
The sound of what you're actually working on. Like,
yeah, I recorded like there is like they have a very like percussive like type of music where it's like chanting, singing, but there's a lot of like percussion, and the percussion groups are like they're like bands, and so we had like a guide and we talked to some people at the hotel, and we had like a bunch of those, and it's funny because they have like this like these outfits, and even though we didn't need them to, they came in the outfits, like they came in for, and so like I recorded like probably like a couple of hours of different bands just like coming to the hotel and us like recording in the lobby of the hotel.
They came suited up, ready to go.
They came like it was like, a performance.
We're gonna go record with these American guys, and Frank is there like, I'm Dominican, bro.
Yeah, and it was just like me with like a video camera, like a Nikon, and then like two mics, just like. And that was it, but it sounded awesome. It was like super cool, and then the people at the hotel were super nice, and they let us do it. Everybody was like happy, like, but it was super cool. Like,
so, how long between this moment and the moment that you first met Amy and you started working on the Amy project?
When I met Salaam and we went to his studio, I initially like heard, and then like a few years passed because Frank, first album Frank, and then when she started,
named it after you and everything, bro. You see,
I was like, bro, come on. No, and then it was a few years that I was with Salaam. We were doing a lot of different stuff. Got to do a lot of like really cool stuff with him. And then she started writing. I guess they started communicating that she was writing, and then she would come down and like they would write, and then she would go back, and then we would like flesh out the recordings and stuff like that. And then she would come back and listen and whatever, and then do vocals. Like she came the first time mainly to kind of write, kind of sort everything out. And then we sent the songs back and forth, and they would, discuss the direction. And then she would come back and do like final vocals and like hang out and like.
That's one of the, I feel like one of the projects that definitely, especially for the time, sounds completely different. Than what we're used to.
That was all her.
I was gonna ask you, what was like the whole creative aspect?
That was all
like
her.
The
like
mood board, let's
the
say.
original demos, and they've since been released. But the original demos were more like the first album, which is a little bit more like hip hop, like hip hop kind of beats, and then her kind of doing her jazzy thing. But I know that when she would like talk to Salaam, she would reference, that song "Leader of the Pack."
That's in the last album,
No. There's it's an old song. No. It's like an old, but it's like that sound, like
okay,
that kind of stuff. And there's like sound effects in the song. It's song. If you're out there, go in your Spotify and then play "Leader of the Pack" right now. It's like it's a cool song. There's like. It's like those old songs where there's like talking. Yeah. Where she's like, oh, I hate him.
Like that 60s sound.
Yeah. And they're like talking, and then there's like music, and there's like even like sound effects. And there's like a thunder sound. And she was like super into that. She was like, oh, I want my project to sound like this. And then.
So there was a less of the hip hop influence.
Yeah. She wanted to do more like that 60s.
Which was really what I believe also kicked her off.
Yeah,
that sound.
Yeah, no. That was a really good call on her part. And then obviously the songs were great. Yeah. Right. And then so everything so then, after those kind of conversations, we started then kind of made a transition and, put the MPC away, and then we started recording drums and all, like really like listening to that stuff and being like, okay, how do we make that sound? And it was a lot of like live recording and like recording, you know, things in a space that sounded a certain way, and just being like one of the things that I always mention is that when they were mixing that album, the songs that we did with her were recorded at Salaam's house in the living room. Salaam had a really big 2-story house, and it had a lot of reverb in the living room. I didn't try to stop it. I let the reverb happen. And then I sent the vocal to be mixed, and then they hit us back, and they're like, "Hey, can you send us the vocal without the reverb?" And I was like, "No, I can't. Like, it's in the recording."
The voice was
yeah. It was like there's a crazy amount of reverb in that room, but it sounded good.
Right.
And I was like, I can't. Like, it's recorded that way. And then they were like, oh, they were like, oh yeah,
they got
like
it.
we're going for it, right? And it ended up working. And a lot of the stuff that we recorded cool. was like, it was in that big room. It was a big live room essentially. Because there wasn't really a lot of furniture in there, so it was just like this big empty room, and it had like a cool reverb.
Because usually you try to get the cleanest signal possible.
Yeah,
and
you try to booth, and it's super quiet and stuff like that. And then even to kind of accentuate it, like she wasn't up, like the mic was like kind of high, so it was just kind of catching her in the room, and it worked, And Salaam was actually cool enough to let me do that.
And I think that's also one of the cool things, that you look at projects for their face value. What are we trying to achieve here? And then you say, okay, we can put her in the living room and with the reverb.
Yeah.
Or it's something where we actually need to tighten up, or we need to, run it through post, or, or keep it in the box because it's EDM or whatever genre it deserves.
But I think that, when it was clear, like the direction, I think we were just trying to like get the sound in the recording so that like it already had like Salaam's really big on that, like making it sound like it's, because if you do that, half the battle's won, right? Like if somebody's like, hey, I need you to do a podcast. If you buy these 2 mics and it already looks like it, half the battle's run.
Half the battle, yeah.
That's it. Like, yo, you got the thing, you got a light. Okay, now you got to have content, obviously.
Don't give me shit in the speaker position.
No, I love it. I love it. It's great. Shout out to KRK. No, but like this visual part, like you
already got it.
You got it.
There. Yeah.
Now it feels already. Now the person comes in. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with music. Like if you got the parts and it already kind of sounds like the thing, then it makes it easier to do the thing.
Mm-hmm. A lot of photographers do that, where they try to take the picture ready to go perfect, so they don't have to quote unquote Photoshop.
Yeah, you don't have to do like a lot of post. And then it's the same thing with any creative in there, right? If you kind of nail it from the beginning, then there's less stuff you have to fiddle with. It's also like, there's less chances of you then now messing it up afterwards because you're trying to do too much. Yeah. I remember after that album came out, people would be like, how did you guys do that? And then I would see articles like, oh, what we did was we rolled all the high frequencies off. And I was like, I didn't do any of that stuff. Like, that's not what we did. We recorded instruments with a lot of like older mics through like actual older preamps, but I still recorded it to Pro Tools. Like I wasn't like filtering stuff so it sounds like, no, I just used like some old gear, and then we kind of like just made sure that all the playing and all the stuff and the way we mic'd it, like we took the care on the front end to make sure that in the preparation and stuff, so that when it got to the mixing, things kind of already sounded like it was just them now making it kind of modern and make sure all the songs work together. But we tried to kind of capture the essence, which if you do that in any creative endeavor, like it just makes it.
Half the battle is already won. Absolutely. How necessary, you've been in like as a student, you went to Full Sail, as a teacher, you were SAE. How necessary do you think education is for most people in our world?
Everybody's going to hate when I say, and I would say this all the time. I don't necessarily think you need to go to a school, right? I definitely do think you need to be educated and you need to learn.
Especially that studio etiquette.
Right. And you also need to learn.
Sorry, give me a second. I have to say this. Studio etiquette class, Frank was like, guys, bro, just shower, bro. Like, before a session, just take a shower. You're almost there. Like,
it's true. You're gonna be around people for a long time. Like, you don't want to be that guy who smells or gal. What were you talking about? You're talking about the
school.
Oh, I don't think you necessarily need to go to like a school. I know guys who became engineers who never went to school and became really successful. There's a lot of producers who never have any formal training and they've become super successful. I'm sure there's guys who are videographers, editors who never went to any school. You don't need to do it. I think what school gives you is a really good understanding of what it is that you're doing and how to do it, right? So you kind of skip a lot of steps. There's less YouTube. So you're getting stuff from sometimes a much more credible source. But sometimes it also holds you back because you become a product of their thought process, which sometimes isn't always the only way. You know, I think when I started teaching early on, like I had this like, yo, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. And then as I went through the years, I realized that like, you know what? You need to kind of leave it a little bit more open and let people figure it out. Mm-hmm. So then as I, like till now, even when I teach, I try to leave people space to to ask the question. Like I'll lead you and then I'll be like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, well, what kind is this? And I'll be like, well, I could work. Why don't we try it? And like because that's the important part. The are you thinking about this, or are you just a mindless robot that's following the instructions that the teacher gave you, which is dangerous because Absolutely. Then nothing moves forward.
And there's no creative aspect punched into it.
No, you're coloring. Kill all creativity. You're coloring by numbers. You're filling in. Red is 1, 2 is yellow. That's all you're doing. But if I leave you the space to go, oh, can I try it like this? 100% you can try it like this. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's really cool. It sounded good. Oh, but not for this. I can use it for something else. All right, cool. Put that in your pocket. You can bring it out later some other time. That's the problem that I have sometimes with structured education, is that it can be too structured and it takes out the thought process. Not the creativity, the thought process. And I think that's super important for any endeavor.
But I do feel there's a creative education portion where it's like, I mean, and I think it's how you approach it too. Like to me, school has always been a tool for me to get to a certain point. So if I go to audio engineering school, I know that from now on, I know how this microphone works. I know where to stand. I know firsthand how to use it. I started in media with my dad when I was like 11, I could say professionally. And by the time I was in school, it was 10 years later, 21 with you guys. I had done a lot of things in TV and radio and live sound, DJing. But when I actually got to do ear training, when I got to learn how a compressor works, not even what it does, because a lot of people don't even know what it does, but how to move it around, how it works, and why, when you need it. Like, I could do things off the top of my head without even hearing something, and I'll be halfway there. You know what I mean? I think that's what it gave me. It gave me freedom to know where everything should go. You know what I mean?
And you came from a very kind of almost kind of privileged space where you're kind of going there knowing like you know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. Whereas like I feel like sometimes people go to school and they don't know what they don't know, and then they just become like hamsters, and not lemmings. Excuse me.
Is that kind of like self-awareness?
Yeah, there's a self-awareness of like knowing like I don't know how to do this, but I want to learn how to do this. And then there's some people who go there and they're just like, yo, I'm coming here because they're going to teach me how to. Like I think like the expectation of what it is that you're actually going to do there. That's why when I was at SAE, I'd be like, when you leave here, you suck at engineering. You still suck. You just know how it all works. Now it takes you to actually put in the work and practice and get sessions and get clients and learn how to send an invoice and all. That then completes. Yeah. But when you leave, you're terrible. Like there's very few people that leave audio school that are like.
Great. Yeah. No, nobody does that. And I think in most schools, that's the way it should work in a way. Like you need to get your own experience in your own time, and much more in our creative spaces, where you have to. And I think you've done a pretty good job at that. You're a producer, you're also an engineer. Like you're able to make decisions on the engineering aspect that affect the production at the end of the day. That is huge. That is why people like working with you.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I also don't stink.
You also don't stink. And you know when to shut up. You know when to talk. Like I teach that a lot in public speaking classes. It's if I'm going to go in and do a job to be the main speaker and I need to highlight and I need to teach people and I need to get them up and moving, I need to highlight, I need to speak louder, I need to be clear, I need to make sure they're understanding me. But if I'm there to introduce the main person, I'm there to introduce.
That's it.
Sit back, let him highlight. You know what I mean? Like you need to know where you are in order to do the job correctly.
I think there's no place where that is more evident than with a lot of like the current state of like podcasts, where you see people who don't understand that, and the guest is speaking and they're just like, no, because when I did it, and you're just like, that's not.
Yeah, you got to learn how to manage a conversation. And you know, sometimes it sucks, but you have to sit back. And I have a friend that I record his podcast, and 90% of the interview, if you just punch his camera, he's like, hmm, really? And it works for him.
Of course.
He's highlighting the other person. It's not about him. At the end of the day, his name is all over the podcast. He's on every episode. But obviously, like, the guest gets to highlight, and some of these people, they haven't spoken in a long time, and they want to say these things.
Yeah, and that now, we're gonna put a bow on it right now.
Go for it.
In any creative endeavor, when you're the technical person, that's literally your job. When you're the engineer, you're okay. That's what you want to do? Okay, cool. If you're the photographer, yes, you have some creative input, but at the end of the day, if the bride is like, I want to wear this dress because this is the one that my grandma made, and you now need to work within those parameters and maybe sit back and listen and be like, okay, I see what you're saying. Let's figure out how to get it there and not be like, oh, it's not about you. And that's something that obviously you can't really teach that. You have to learn that. But it's something that a lot of people who work in creative spaces, sometimes they fall into that. Like, no, because I want to do this and I want to make it good. And I understand that you want to make it good. But is who good for who? Good for you or good for the person that's making the stuff? Because those are two different things.
Absolutely.
Good for you might be terrible for them and vice versa. So you need to kind of understand what you're doing and, go, how can I make this good for my client or my person or the thing that I'm trying to do?
Or the project. At the end of the day, there's always a project in mind that needs to get fulfilled, like something that you need to do. What's coming up next for my guy Frank, man? What's up? What's next for you?
Man, I'm hungry, so probably lunch. No, I'm kidding. So just after, just years of stuff, I have my own, like, kind of a small recording studio. It's hidden away. Nobody actually knows where it is.
Okay.
But I post pictures of it all the time.
I see the pictures.
And people are like, bro, can I come to your studio? And I'm like, no. It's like my little man cave. I just go there and work on stuff. But I've kind of been focusing on other things. So more on the business side of things. So
well, you started being in the business side of things, or at least where I saw more of it was in your last role with Rich Music. Right?
Yeah, with Rich, I was over there. I was managing the studio, but then moved into the A&R role.
How was that?
It was cool. I mean, I've never, because most of the time I've done music, it was on the Anglo side. Mm-hmm. So moving into like the Latin side, obviously I'm aware, I speak Spanish, I'm around Latin music, and I have been in the past, but never so much so. Like, this is the industry. And then going into, like, on the A&R and really being on the business side of things, like with publishing and all that kind of stuff, was really interesting. I've always been, like, super curious about it. And then so I was really fortunate to be able to move into that position and just, like, get, like a hardcore, like, crash course of, like, everything that you kind of, like, are going to run into. And because it was such a small label and company, but with big artists and big acts, you got to see, like, a lot of the inner workings. So, I got to really go in with the team at UMPG, which is with their publisher, and kind of really get a lot of information from them. And then seeing, like, deals with the producers and the writers, and seeing, like, splits, and seeing, like, producer contracts and all these things, and just being like, oh, okay. Like, just like, everything was, like, demystified for me, which is great.
It's definitely a great learning experience.
It was amazing. You couldn't pay for that. Like, and there's no school where you could, like, get that much information in such a short period of time. So it was great. So now I'm taking that and just looking for writers and producers, and a lot of it is just helping people kind of navigate the space. Publishing deals and things you should be looking out for, and just there's a lot of things that people are not aware of, and like where the monies are generated and how to collect those monies, and that you can collect those monies, and then also just like understanding what the fair, what your market value is, which a lot of people don't know. So a lot of people undercut themselves, and then
as far as what, artists, songwriters,
all of it, everyone, producers. I see it all the time. I see producers. And they'll be like, I'm like, hey, how much are you getting for this? Oh, I'm not getting, there's no producer fee, but I'm like, okay. And then what? You're getting how many points? Oh, well, working it out. Like, I'm like, but the song is coming out. Yeah, I know, but I'm just like, so there's a lot of like, and people are scared. They don't want to rock the boat. And I'm like, it's not rocking the boat. It's just, being upfront. I'm sure that those people's lawyers are on point and they're definitely rocking the boat.
So is this an artist, songwriter, a creator problem, or is this a negotiation problem?
I think, well, it's definitely a negotiation problem, but I think it's also a creative problem because they sometimes don't know their self-worth, which is a big part of it. And they don't feel like, we've all been there. And you feel like, I don't know, these guys are super cool. I don't want to mess it up. But they're coming to you because you're good at something. And they're asking for your services. So you should be paid in return for your services. And you don't got to be a jerk about it, but you also don't have to like be a pushover. So there's just like certain levels. Like, some of the guys that I've spoken to have seen me go, I did it with a producer. I was like, how much are you getting for this? Oh, I'm not going to charge them. I'm like, why not? Oh, I'm not going to charge them. I was like, I bet you that I can get $5,000 as a production fee. And he was like, no, they're not. And I was like, okay, watch. Hey, for this, well, it's $5,000 as a production fee. And they were like, oh, we can't do that because da-da-da. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that's what we need. And then they came back, well, can you do 3,500? And I was like, oh, we can't really do 3,500. Can you do 4 and then this extra point and then this? Okay, cool. And then they agreed to it. And then later on, they were like, hey, there was actually 2 other records that we wanted to do. Would you do all 3 records for 11,000? And then I was like, let's figure it out. And then talked to the producer, hey, are you okay with them doing all 3 records for 11,000? And he was like, what? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. Hey, we're okay with this. Nice. And then he was just like, I was like, it doesn't have to be like a battle. You just tell people what you need. And obviously they have the right to say no, but so do you.
Absolutely. That's a great learning experience, bro. Because I also think like there's a worth and there's a value. Like if it's one of these big labels and a big name artist, like you're not gonna stop from charging them, although you want the credit. Like there's also un vaivén ahí.
But it has to be worth it.
But it has to be worth it for you. Yeah.
100. You have to get something out of it. Always. My mom was a hairdresser, and when I was young, I learned to cut. I learned to give people fades, and my mom was like, "You have to charge people something, even if it's $1, because if you don't, they're always gonna come back and expect it for free." So even if it's $1, they know that they have to come with $1. And once they get used to paying you, then it's no problem. And I never forgot that. And yes, coming up, I did free stuff, but it wasn't completely free because I got something else out of it. There was a connection. I knew what I was going to get out of it. And I knew what I needed from it. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to do this for no money, but in exchange, I'm getting this connection. I'm working here. I'm bartering for this. You got to get something. You can't just do stuff for free and then not get anything in return, because then you feel like, oh, well. And now you're that person that just does stuff for free. And it's hard to get out of that.
I feel like there's been a shift throughout the years for creators with like back in the day, I guess, let's call it 30 years ago, an artist was just an artist. Maybe they would kind of write, they would kind of get into it. And in media, it's happened as well, where journalists was just like, oh, I'm going to go out and do una nota ahí en Telemundo.
You're just like a thing.
That's it. And then multimedia journalism started coming out, which is when you record yourself, you edit it yourself, you post it yourself, you find the note yourself. And in music, it started happening as well. Do you think that's going to flip back with so many AI and so much tools that we're going to have, that the creator is going to have more of like an independence?
No, I don't think it'll get any more than it is now. I think what'll happen is that like there'll be new things for them to do, which they will also do. But one of the things that I find, especially like in music, particularly, is that like you have like these producers who are like super self-sufficient. Like I record myself, but then at some point they either get really busy, and now it's not cost effective for them to do everything. So now they have to like, oh, let me record this person that can record my vocals for me. Let me hire this person. Oh, I need to hire this person to do my social media because I can't be in charge of it anymore. And that's what happens. When you get to a certain point, you can't just keep doing it all yourself because you don't have enough time. And it's also, you realize that you're losing money by doing it all yourself. And so it just naturally, like, people just evolve into that. And then you see people now, this producer who you saw 2 years ago was like doing everything. Now they show up and there's 3 people with them. There's a video guy, there's another engineer, there's another producer who's like sorting out loops for them, stuff like that. So it just, they keep finding like a team. And within that team of those people, they were probably self-sufficient. and now they're part of a team, and so it just keeps happening over and over. I've been fortunate to have been in this long enough, and just to see it happen over and over and over again. Eventually, like there's a team, and now you need a lawyer, and you need a manager, and that becomes you become an ecosystem for a group of people.
You need that.
100%.
When you grow and you do this for a living, like you have to have some kind of ecosystem. You can't
just be like, I do everything. And it doesn't mean that from time to time you don't stop and like, oh, I'm going to go back and kind of just, right? Because there's a certain like magic of you being like completely in control and like controlling this whole narrative. But then like from just a business standpoint, if you want to grow, you need to give up certain things, which are time consuming. Let somebody else worry about the calendar and the schedule. Like that shouldn't be your priority if you're the creative person.
So in this case, 2026, Frank, what are we going to get? Assistant engineer, assistant producer? What's your team going to look like in 2027?
I mean, my team in 2027 is, there's actually people I'm already working with. There's a couple of producers that I'll be working with and kind of helping them get to that next level. There's a young man that I'll be working with on the marketing side of things, just really like guiding people, helping them get to that next place. And, you know, letting them know their value and where it lies, and, you know, kind of helping them get to those places. You know, I'm old enough and I've been in this long enough, and I've kind of gained enough respect from a lot of people in the industry that I can reach out to people and be like, hey, I need kind of do this and put this thing together. And just open doors for people, and yeah, that's kind of it. Like
I think that's something that you deserve, bro. Is that
Thanks,
where you really want to go? You want to do like the business side?
You know, when I was younger, I'd be like, oh, this is so stupid. But now, like, I find it fascinating. Like, I remember like being on those emails with.
Is it because you demystified it?
100%.
Yeah,
100. Like, it's no longer like now I know how it works. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, this is really not that difficult. It's convoluted, but it's not difficult. And also, like, you ever do something new and you get really excited about it, and you're like, man, this is like, that felt great.
That's my life.
Right. So so for me, it used to be like recording or like a new piece of gear. Like I used to get really excited, and now it's like those kinds of emails where I'm like, no, I need this much money for the thing. Like that, like gets me amped. You know, like when somebody responding and like, you know, negotiating, like that gets me amped. Also, like learning about like stuff gets me really excited. So I feel like it's a really good place for me to be. And I just, to be honest with you, I can't be in the studio till 4 a.m. anymore. Like
there comes a point when you can't. Like it's just
I'm out. I'm like,
I don't need to be doing this.
I'm out. Like
Mimir.
Yeah, like, tap out. Like I'm done. So most of my stuff is early in the day. If I enjoy being in the studio. It's like one of my favorite places. But I have to think about like how I can help more people, and I can do that by stepping out of the room and being more on this kind of different creative, but still, you know.
Yeah, still in the same field, still being creative. I really like that, man. I think we all need to evolve. We all need to grow. I stepped out recently from fairly recently, less than a year, completely from the music side because of one thing, which is podcasting. And my goal here is to really take podcasting to where music is already. That there's a structure, there's a publishing structure, there's a songwriting structure, there's a labels and stuff like that. And I think podcasting needs that. At some point, we're gonna have so many podcasts that nobody's actually quality controlling this.
That happens with music too.
Yeah,
and and we're seeing it with like the reports now, like Spotify. Like, yeah, these people are streaming X amount, but like nobody's making any money, and people are not listening to the new music. There's too much to listen to. People are just listening to the same songs because they're familiar with them. They're not looking to. So we're seeing it. So that's going to make things contract, right? Because then the label's like, well, I'm not paying for this. Like, we're not going to keep just throwing a million songs out if none of them are doing anything. We need to figure out a way to bring the clients back. And with any space like this, it'll happen. It's going to grow to a point, and then it's going to be like, okay, everybody who's outside of the circle, you're done. And then this circle needs to contract and then become a thing. I was actually having a conversation about this last night. We were in the studio and we were talking, and I was like, I noticed that a lot of like the podcasts that are like music focused, like they're great. I was like, but it would only take one of them to play 4 videos during the show, and we're back to 106 in Park.
Absolutely.
Like
the format is already there.
It's there. Like they have great. The cool thing about it is like I feel like with the podcast stuff, a lot of people have become great interviewers.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like 106 in Park was always like really surface, and a lot of like those MTV,
Because it's shorter format.
it was a shorter
have the
format,
time.
and the people who were doing it maybe weren't journalists; they were just like people.
Yeah.
Now
Well, a lot
I-
of those things where like had producers in the back with like a list of questions, which
Yeah,
also doesn't connect with anyone.
It doesn't. And it was it's recently I've been watching them like especially specifically now with like this whole clips like all the interviews that they've been doing for their run. I've just been watching them like, you know what? I would have loved like somewhere minute 7 they were like, yo, we're gonna play a video from, and then they come back and they ask a couple more questions and 45 minutes, 3 segments. You
Yep.
throw in a couple of videos, you get an hour, 105, whatever. It's YouTube, so you can. I think the issue there is just making sure that all the
Rights.
clearances.
Yeah, that's a big issue that they're not really going to clear that. At least there's no system in place at the moment. But also, one of the things that we have advantages over in podcasting is the niche, that you're allowed to niche into something very, very specific. Like this podcast specifically, it's for creators, but also that are bilingual, because sometimes se sale algo en español, sometimes
Of course,
in
and
English.
it's okay.
So, and that's okay. There's a whole market for that right now. So, well, right now, and it's been there for like 10 years already. But I think that's one of the advantages that 106 in Park didn't, that who's going to turn on the TV? It could be a little
Right.
15-year-old girl. It could be a 45-year-old woman trying to listen
Right.
to that music video.
And we brought up the thing about the licensing and all, and I was like, yeah, it just takes one of these bigger companies to say, hey, look, YouTube, let's figure this out because we want to roll this out. Like the Mimo Viacom could be like, hey, we want to bring TRL back, but we want to put it on YouTube. I don't know if they're doing something like that,
I don't think so.
but they could.
They could.
They just got to get some of these people who are doing pod, and they could listen. Let me just.
It's possible. It's completely possible.
Like they could
It's
do
just
like every hour
agreements.
on the hour could be a different show.
Yeah.
It could be a different podcast, like a different host with different types of music, and they play a couple of videos, and it doesn't have to be wall to wall videos. Because
What podcast do you like?
So there's a couple of ones like I really enjoy. Like it's funny because I've really kind of started to narrow down like the things that I like. So I realized like one of my favorite podcasts is a podcast called Juan Epstein.
Okay.
It's done by this DJ named Cypher Sounds and this other radio guy who's from Hot 97 called Peter Rosenberg. I think they are actually the first hip hop podcast ever, but they just didn't blow up. They're just kind of been like super kind of underground. And then I kind of like Joe Budden, but not. I don't like Joe Budden. I just enjoy the podcast. And I realize what it is. Like all those podcasts are very like New York guys, like talking in a New York way. And it just gives me like a nostalgia thing. It's like sitting at the barbershop.
You were raised in New York, born in
Yeah.
New York. Born in New York.
So I realize that I enjoy that. So any podcast that's like a New York guy that's a little bit older, just talking New York shit.
It talks your language.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like, bro, I'm all in. Then just like informative stuff, but it's like more random. Like I'll do like some NPR stuff, like whatever. I enjoy the music ones just because the music takes, like that one song one where the guy breaks down, like they have like the stems and they break down the song. Like that's super cool, but like I don't love the hosts. I love the content, but I don't love them. And for me,
Which is also a big deal nowadays. Like who's interviewing? Anyone can interview, I don't know, whoever you want. But who is interviewing them and how they're taking the interview? I think that's also like the point of view, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's like you were no longer in that era where like, okay, if I turn on this channel, it's this person and I just got to watch it because there's nothing else.
We're done with that era. And the guy that did the casting with the perfect hair and the fucking bleached teeth.
Nobody cares. So now it's like, bro, if I don't like your podcast, I'll go right in my podcast app and be like, nope, this guy. And I'll switch off. I don't care.
Same thing happens with music too.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just like you really have to, you have an opportunity now to kind of like you said, very niche, like figure out who your audience is and focus in on that. And just talk to those people directly. But I think that there's definitely a space for people to like figure out way to play music and play videos. And that could really become a place to now bring music back where people actually start to maybe care a little bit more about getting things to a certain level. Again, not just releasing the first idea you have, but like, hey, let me get this all done right so then I can go on Randy's podcast and we can have the interview and I can play the video and I can premiere it and I can make a really big thing about it so so that more people can pay attention, and maybe somebody who's not really a fan might learn about me, and because that's really the point of it all. So.
Promo, absolutely.
So I think there's a space for it. I think, it'd be great to see stuff like that come back, and like, shows where people come and maybe they perform live, and I don't know.
I mean, there could be a lot of things. I mean, this new space that we just built out is kind of made for this.
I'm just trying to drop ideas.
This new spot that we just started building out a few months ago is kind of made for something similar to what you said. Like, I wanted to do the lounge, which is not huge, but it's something for like 30, 40 people, for us to do panels, for us to do live performances and things like that. That can't be taken off of YouTube because it's a live performance. So those are things where you have a little bit more creative control over when it comes to the podcast. So I do feel like the transition for podcasting is probably going to be going more into the live aspect, where you're doing live podcasts, live streaming, which is you're already seeing it a lot. And that's where you're going to start seeing the music first, before playing back a video that the label is going to have all the rights.
That makes sense. I like that too. That would be great. I think that would feel. But then the other thing is, now going back to what I was saying, now the artists really have to prepare, because not everybody can perform live.
Absolutely.
So now, like, you're going to be on the spot. So now you got to rehearse. You got to, and it just brings a whole different kind of care to the thing that you're trying to.
Absolutely, man. Yo, Frank, thank you so
Thanks,
much, bro.
Randy.
Did we miss out on anything? Do we have to highlight something else? You want to give your BBM pin?
I'll give you my 2-way pager code. No, man. My Instagram is Frank Socorro. That's
Mr. Alphabet.
Yeah, if you DM me, I promise I will respond. I actually respond to people. So
yes, he does.
Hit me.
Are you still doing those monthly gatherings?
I haven't done them in a while.
Those were great, man.
They were super cool, and people ask me all the time to bring them back. I just don't know where to do them now. And I also, like, I would do them, and I don't want them to become like repetitive. So, people always ask me, like, we should do them again. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want it just to be the same thing every week. Like, I would like, maybe it's opening up to other creatives, not just music.
Absolutely.
Like.
And I think there's a lot of things that correlate between one and the other. There
100%.
A lot of things
they
that
always end
link
up
up.
working. I mean, nowadays, like, if you need, like, content, like, you need a video guy, you need a graphic guy, so, like, all those creative people can come to. If you knit t-shirts or knit sweaters, like, come out too. Like, maybe you can knit a cool patch or something. I don't know. Something. There's a space for it. I just don't know where to do it. Awesome. I don't know where to do it, but we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out, my brother. Thank you so much for your time,
Thanks, Randy.
bro.
Take it easy,
Appreciate it.
man.